I should have known better than to take interstate for that night. The sky was already bruising with dark clouds when I left Orlando, and the radio was blaring warnings about an incoming storm. But I was in a hurry, as always. The meeting in Tampa couldn't wait, and I figured I could beat the rain. I'd driven that stretch of I-4 hundreds of times without incident, but that night was different. The rain started just as I hit the section of highway known as the I-4 dead zone. I'd heard the stories, everyone has. There's something about that particular stretch of road near Sanford, something people don't like to talk about in the daylight. But at night, when the shadows creep in and the fog rolls over the asphalt, the stories come out. They say the dead zone was built over an old burial ground, the resting place of 4 European settlers who died of yellow fever in the 1880s. No one bothered to move the graves when they built the highway. They just paved right over them, as if the dead wouldn't mind. But the dead, they say, have a way of making their displeasure known. The rain came down in sheets, so heavy that my wipers couldn't keep up. The headlights of my car barely cut through the downpour, and the road seemed to disappear beneath a river of water. I slowed down, gripping the wheel tighter, trying to see through the chaos. Lightning flashed, illuminating the sky in brief, jagged streaks, followed by the deep rumble of thunder that shook the car. I was alone on the road. No other cars in sight, just me and the storm. The wind picked up, howling through the trees that lined the highway. The rain turned into a deluge, hammering against the roof of my car, and for a moment, I considered pulling over. But there was nowhere to go, no safe place to wait it out. I had to keep moving. That's when I saw them. At first, I thought it was just the rain playing tricks on my eyes, but as I got closer, I could see them more clearly, 4 figures standing on the side of the road, just beyond the reach of my headlights. They were dressed in old-fashioned clothing, their faces pale and gaunt, eyes hollow as they stared at me. My heart raced. I knew the stories, knew what they said about the spirits of the settlers who had died here, but I had never believed them. Ghosts were just that, stories. But as I drove past, I felt a chill crawl up my spine, colder than the storm raging outside. Their eyes followed me, their expressions blank and unnerving. I tried to shake it off, convincing myself it was just my imagination. The storm, the darkness, it was enough to make anyone see things. But then, out of nowhere, the car shuddered violently, as if something had struck it. I slammed on the brakes, my tires skidding on the wet pavement. The car came to a stop, and for a moment, I just sat there, heart pounding, trying to make sense of what had happened. Then I felt it, a cold, unnatural presence in the car with me. My breath caught in my throat as the temperature inside the car plummeted. I could see my breath misting in front of me, and the windows began to fog up from the inside. Slowly, I turned my head, my skin crawling with dread, and saw a figure in the passenger seat beside me. It was one of the settlers, a man with sunken cheeks and hollow eyes. His skin was ashen, and his clothes were tattered, stained with something dark and old. He stared straight ahead, not acknowledging me, but his presence was suffocating. I could feel the weight of his sorrow, his anger, pressing down on me, making it hard to breathe. Panicked, I fumbled for the door handle, desperate to get out, but the door wouldn't budge. The storm outside intensified, the wind howling like a banshee, and the car began to shake as if it were caught in the grip of something powerful and unseen. Lightning flashed again, and in that brief moment of illumination, I saw the other 3 figures standing outside the car, their faces twisted in expressions of torment. The hurricane hit with full force, the wind and rain slamming into the car with a ferocity that made the windows rattle. The figure beside me slowly turned his head to look at me, his eyes black as night, filled with an ancient, unrelenting rage. His mouth moved, but no sound came out. I could feel his words in my mind, though, words of pain, of betrayal, of vengeance. They were angry, angry at being forgotten, at being paved over and left to rot under the road. Their deaths had been cruel, and now they wanted the living to pay. I knew, in that moment, that I was trapped with them, that they would not let me go until they had their due. Desperation fueled my actions. I slammed my foot on the gas pedal, the engine roaring to life as the car lurched forward. The figure beside me vanished as suddenly as he had appeared, but I could still feel their presence all around me, pressing in, watching. The wind howled louder, and the rain turned to hail, pelting the car with a deafening roar. I drove blindly, my heart racing, my knuckles white as I gripped the wheel. The road twisted and turned in the darkness, the storm a living entity trying to pull me into its maw. I couldn't see where I was going, only that I had to keep moving, had to escape whatever was chasing me. Finally, after what felt like hours, I saw the lights of a gas station up ahead. I swerved off the highway, the tires screeching as I pulled into the parking lot and brought the car to a skidding halt. I sat there, hands shaking, trying to calm my ragged breathing. The storm still raged outside, but the oppressive presence was gone, leaving only the echo of their sorrow in my mind. I stumbled out of the car, soaked to the bone, and ran into the gas station. The clerk looked up, startled by my appearance, but I didn't care. I just needed to be around people, needed the warmth of human presence to chase away the cold that had settled in my bones. As I stood there, dripping wet and trembling, I realized I had narrowly escaped something dark, something that had been lying in wait for centuries. The I-4 dead zone wasn't just a haunted stretch of highway, it was a place of wrath, where the dead still roamed, angry and forgotten, looking for someone to remember their pain. I never took that route again. The stories were true, and I had learned the hard way that some roads are better left untraveled. The dead may be silent, but their presence lingers, waiting for the next soul to wander into their territory on a dark and stormy night.